It's finally time, the review video you've been waiting for. We finally crossed 99,999 miles on our 2021 Nissan Titan Pro4X. Now overall, the Nissan Titan is a great truck, and I've talked about all the things that I really like about it in previous videos, so check those videos out on the channel. But for this particular review video, since we are at that 100,000 mile threshold, I want to talk about some of the things that are starting to wear out a bit, some of the things that I might be surprised about, or some of the things that we need to start looking at changing out at this stage of the game. Now, if you're new to the channel, or this is the first Titan review video you're picking up here on this channel, I'll give you a quick rundown of why we purchased the truck and how we have it set up. So again, a 2021 Nissan Titan Pro4X, we got it a couple of years ago at this point. We bought it initially in order to pull our camper, our travel trailer. It's a no boundaries 20.3, it's about 26 feet long. I think it's about 5,700 pounds dry, maximum weight of like 7,500 pounds. Pulls it with no problem. We have a weight distribution hitch that we use, and it works out fantastic. It has no trouble pulling it whatsoever with, it's 400 horsepower, 400 and something foot-pounds of torque. Big thirsty 5.6 liter V8. It's on a 2.5 inch, I would say, rough country lift. You can see that it has the ARE Overlander bed cap with an ARE Ascend roof basket and some rough country lights. We set this up because we have overlanding plans with this truck. The truck has 18x9 black diamond wheels wrapped in 33 1250/18 Nitto Ridge grapplers. The Nitto Ridge grapplers, they're okay. Not a big fan of them after they start to wear in a bit, to be honest. What a great looking truck though. So good looking, great body lines, great color combination in my opinion. Love the V8, love the column shifter. So many attributes of the Nissan Titan that we really love, and which is why we purchased it over any other truck. And honestly, it handles any scenario that we throw at it, and we've been super happy with it pulling our camper. So it checks literally every single box, but that's not why we're here today. It is crossed over now at this point 100,000 miles, and actually at the point of editing this video we're well over 102,000 miles, and I want to give you a rundown of what we're dealing with at this stage of the game. Now, the first issue I'm going to point out is the suspension, and because it's an aftermarket lift and not an OEM part, I can't really blame it on the mileage for the Titan per se. But if you're planning on getting a rough country lift, this might be something you want to keep in mind. After about 30,000 miles or so, there starts to be signs of wear. You'll get some squeaking in the rear end, and the control arms are starting to wear out in the front. I'm going to have to swap those out here sooner than later. The rear end is starting to squeak a little bit, especially when you're going at slow speeds and over some of these like oscillating type terrain. If you're going up a driveway or into a parking lot, you'll start to hear some creaking and squeaking from the rear. And in the front, the ball joint's wearing out with the rubber cracking and leaking, and they're gotta be swapped out. Now, since we're in this vicinity of the truck, I'm going to mention wheel bearings. The front wheel bearings at about 95,000 miles, they start to go out. I haven't noticed anything profound in terms of whining or humming or that whoa sound on the interstate that you start to hear when wheel bearings are really bad. From time to time, I can hear like a slight whistle. No. Squeal. It's kind of a really high-pitched tone that's barely there, and my wife can't even hear it, but from time to time I can hear it, and I have a feeling it's coming from the right front wheel. So that's something to keep in mind. But I gotta say, 95,000 miles on a lifted truck with oversized tires, aggressive offset wheels, and the way we've driven this truck, what do you expect? Nothing, what do you expect? I think that's pretty good. The brakes too, that's something I should mention. They're worn out and they're ready to be changed, but it's been 100,000 miles and we're still on the original pads. We picked up this truck at 62,000 miles. I didn't have any record of the brake pads being changed. The previous owner did a lot of highway miles, so the brakes really weren't being worn out. I purchased brake pads probably 20,000 miles ago, thinking I was gonna have to replace them sooner than later. And here we are now, finally after 100 and something thousand miles, I'm starting to notice some issues with the front brakes. Again, I think the rears are in decent shape still, but we're gonna swap them all out. But really impressive, really impressive. Another thing I'll point out about this truck, and it has nothing to do with mileage because it's done it since day one, and I've seen on a lot of the groups that people deal with this situation too, the front sensors of the Titan are super sensitive. If it's foggy if it rained or it's raining or it's a little bit frosty in the morning, it'll say the front sensors are dysfunctional, or you'll see that little crash warning on the dash. It's so weird. They're just, I mean, I guess it's good that it's sensitive, but it's also not good that they're so sensitive, because if it's raining, it doesn't give you the collision warning. Whatever. It has nothing to do with miles. Doesn't really affect how I feel about the truck overall. It's just one of those little quirks that the Titan has. I would probably never do it if I tried to replicate it. But at this point, the exhaust rattles a little bit every once in a while when I shut the doors, particularly the rear doors. You just get a little kind of a metal rattle, like a hanger is rubbing or something is loose. I don't even know where it's coming from. Now, before I get to the last 2, maybe 3 areas of concern after 100,000 miles in the Nissan Titan, I want to point out just a couple of things that have really impressed me over the last couple of years. First of all, the paint has remained in really, really good condition. Now, I do wash the truck regularly and I try to keep the gunk and grime off of it, but I don't really go as extreme with the Titan as I do with some of the other cars in the fleet. And even with that being said, it looks fresh. I just washed it yesterday, got some of the pollen off of it, thorough hand washing, and it is as white can be. There's really no blemishes or imperfections, and there's a lot to be said about that after a truck that's been on the road as long as this one has. We've really gotten our use out of this truck. We've used it for literally everything over the last couple of years. I've loaded it up with lumber and, you know, home renovation supplies. We've put the dogs in the back and loaded up the roof rack with luggage and headed across country with the whole family in it. We've hooked it up to our 26-foot trailer on a number of occasions and headed up to the mountains of the upstate of South Carolina. It runs great. I drive it every single day on the interstate. It sounds fantastic. It looks incredible. It is a truck of all trucks, to be quite honest. It's one of the last remaining true trucks, in my opinion, and it's so good looking. And it's so useful too. It truly is a truck for people that like to use their truck for what trucks are meant to be used for. The track system that Nissan uses in their trucks is very useful in tying things down, holding things in place. And the automatic sliding rear window is very useful if you need easy access to the back. All of this being said, there are still a couple, maybe 3 areas of concern that we have with the Titan after 100,000 miles. I should mention too that I changed out the battery at about 95,000 miles. That's really not bad, especially considering the fact that I forgot to turn off the ditch lights for a couple of hours a couple of times, and I've left my rock lights on for a couple of hours at a time as well. So 95,000 miles for the OEM battery, really not too bad at all. Some people have mentioned at about 95 to 100,000 miles that the starter starts to go out on these things. Knock on wood, I haven't noticed an issue. Oh, I'm not going to say that out loud. I'll just say that I hope I don't have to swap out the starter anytime soon. Again, knock on wood, don't jinx myself, because you have to pull the manifold off in order to get to the starter, so it's kind of a crappy job. Now, one of the remaining concerns is this seam area on the roof. A lot of people mention this. It starts to get moldy and weird. Now, it comes off easy with some super clean. You just spray it, wipe it down a little bit, and spray it off with water, and it comes right off. But the issue is that it happens in the first place, and I know a lot of people will say that they have leaks coming from this area. I've been fortunate enough to not have any leaks in this area of the roof, but there is one concern that gets me the most here. And that is this area here, which I noticed last night after cleaning the roof. The paint is actually starting to fail along this rail. It's not rusting. I don't know, maybe this is it doesn't feel like aluminum, but I'm gonna have to just sand this down a little bit and put a little touch-up paint on there to make sure it stops failing. And now that we're after 100,000 miles, I don't think I can have it covered under warranty, which is kind of a bummer. Now, honestly, I could probably take it into the dealer and say, listen, this has clearly failed for well over 2,000 miles, and they can probably get it covered under warranty. But as small of an area as it is, again, I can just sand it down and put some touch-up paint on there, and I think it'll probably prevent it from getting any worse, and it'll certainly protect the metal underneath going forward. So I'm not too worried about it. But if you want it to be, you know, you wanted to have it taken care of and you missed it by 1,000 miles or so, take it in and see what they say. The worst they can say is no, but maybe they'll help you out. Now, as I mentioned, most of the paint is in really good shape, but the one area that takes a lot of abuse, and I really can't figure out a remedy for it, is the front grille. I love the black grille personally. It's one of my favorite aspects of the Titan and one of the reasons that the Pro4X stood out to me so much, but it takes rock chips like crazy, and it's not black underneath, of course. It's that sort of yellow white plastic, so you can see it when you get up close. And it's not that big of a deal when you're standing further back. It's not that noticeable, but there aren't really any good touch-up paints to fix it. I have used gloss black touch-up paint in some areas, and it works fine. It obviously is less of a contrast than the white plastic showing through in these areas, but it's not ideal. So if you can find some matte or even satin black touch-up paint, that might work. But it's just, again, it's not that big of a deal. It's just one of the things to keep in mind. If you drive a lot on the interstate with the Pro4X in particular, with the black grille, it's gonna take a beating. We put the ARE bed cap on it with a roof basket with off-road lights that sit higher than the roof basket. It is basically a sail working in reverse. Okay, the final issue that I have with the Nissan Titan after 100,000 miles is fuel mileage. I know, don't freak out, don't jump all over me saying, well, if you buy a full-size truck, you shouldn't worry about fuel mileage. That's not the concern. I knew going into it, it's a big, thirsty 5.6 liter V8. It's gonna drink a lot of fuel. That's no problem. That's no issue. My problem is how much my fuel mileage has decreased over the last 40,000 miles of owning this truck. And let me put this into perspective a little bit for you. When we first got the truck, I was getting anywhere from 22 to 23 miles per gallon with mixed mileage. That's pretty darn good. I lost about a mile per gallon when I installed the bed cap, and once I installed the roof rack and the off-road lights, we dropped another mile per gallon. So anywhere from 20 to low 21 miles per gallon. Not too bad. The problem that I have is after 40,000 miles, we are down to 14.7 miles per gallon. Now that was all documented on a recent hypermiling video that I did for my other channel, Sweet Culture Studios. Right now, currently, I have 15.9 miles per gallon on the dash, so generally, on my normal, everyday sort of commute week-long tank of gas, I get 15.5 to maybe 16 miles per gallon. So we've lost 5 to 6 miles per gallon over the course of 40,000 miles. Aside from, with the roof rack and the bed cap being taken into consideration. That's not good. One of the reasons is the spark plugs are ready to be changed. It's been 100,000 miles. I have a feeling they are still the factory installed spark plugs. No big deal, they're probably 100,000 mile plugs, but if we change them out, I imagine we get another mile or two per gallon back, and that's a good thing. So something to keep in mind. 100,000 miles, change out the spark plugs. I would actually recommend 75,000 miles with these vehicles because they produce a lot of blow-by, and that is the main reason for the decrease in fuel mileage. They do produce a lot of blow-by. People that have installed catch cans catch a lot of oil, a lot of, it's oil, condensation, fuel, vapors, it's all sorts of crap that gets caught in those catch cans, right? If you don't have a catch can, it gets recycled through the engine and gets coated and gummed up on the intake valves, and that kills fuel mileage. Because we've been running for 100,000 miles, without a catch can, I can only imagine how bad those valves are coated up, and that is killing our mileage. So with a simple valve cleaning, it's not simple, it's a lot of work and it's dirty and I hate doing it and I don't really want to do it. But if we want to get our fuel mileage back, that would be the way to go. Valve cleaning and new spark plugs, and I think it would be a game changer. It would really turn this truck around in terms of how good its fuel efficiency is. Would we get back up to 22, 23 miles per gallon? Maybe, actually, maybe so. Man, this thing is good looking. Look how sharp that thing is. I need to keep it more clean more often. It looks so freaking good right now. Pretty unbelievable, guys. That's it. Those are really my only complaints. There's so many good things about this truck. The paint, aside from the roof rails, holds up really well. Super comfortable. Interior is really durable and holds up quite well even after 100,000 miles. The interior is modern enough, it's sleek enough, it still looks cool in 2025. The panoramic roof is such a great aspect of this truck. It makes it feel so good on those long trips. It rides good, sounds so good, looks fantastic, does everything you need a truck to do and more. It's way better than the rest of them on the market. You can fight me on that one. But there are just a few things that are areas of concern after 100,000 miles. Fuel mileage decreases dramatically after that 40, 50, 60,000 mile point. Anything beyond that 60,000 miles, you're going to start seeing the fuel mileage go down because the spark plugs are getting old and those valves are getting gummed up because of all the blow-by that the 5.6 liter V8 in the Nissan Titan produces. If you have a rough country lift, that's going to wear out after 60, 70,000 miles or so. Wheel bearings start to go around 90, 95, 100,000 miles, along with the brakes, particularly the fronts. But those aren't really surprising things. 90,000+ miles on original pieces of equipment is super impressive to me, especially on a big truck that you use for pulling a trailer, hauling, remodeling equipment, hauling luggage and family around on road trips across the country, and especially living in sort of an area like this where you're going through a lot of elevation changes on a regular basis, ups and downs, riding the brakes, bumper to bumper traffic, things of that nature. The truck is fantastic. Knock on wood, I love it. And now that I've said it out loud, I hope things don't fall apart on me. But fantastic truck overall. I hope this information is helpful for you if you are in the market for a Nissan Titan, particularly one with higher miles. Just a couple of things to keep in mind if you're shopping them. But appreciate you guys watching this video. Thank you very much for the support. More stuff coming for this channel, so I hope you guys will stick around, subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions. We'll see you in the next adventure.